this ruling by the court, where the applicant was seeking to prevent a journalist from reporting on the applicant's issues, for instance, issues to do with the applicant's home, property, and communication without lawful authority. Now, I have just seen the judgment, which actually surprises me, and is the reason we're going to get onto the phone, because he's entered judgment on behalf of the applicant and all the relief sought, with the exception of relief on damage, and as perpetual injunction is granted to stop the first respondent to publish information as regard to the applicant. Signed, His Lordship Nana Brew, Justice of the High Court. And Suleiman Brahima has joined us. Suleiman, I'm looking at this and I'm surprised. I don't know about you, but what do you make of this ruling?
I honestly have read it a number of times, and I can't just understand the reasoning and the logic behind the ruling. In some parts, I question myself, and I think that the conclusion is quite bizarre. That to now say that if a journalist thinks that whatever they've investigated is of public interest, the matter should be presented to IOCO or police or CID or the other state investigative bodies rather than being published. I think what that would mean that, in fact, investigative journalists should stop doing their work and maybe become agents of IOCO and CID and the rest. So this is for me a very, very bizarre ruling.
And let's look at it. I mean, yes, you lead a team of investigative journalists, and we've partnered you. We've celebrated the works that your team has done. In fact, just this morning, we're talking about SML, which at the time was done by your team, for instance. And today, part of the, things that the OSP uses to say we are working is investigations that you published. So how can it be the case that if we, and here I say we because I'm a journalist too, if we investigate, instead of airing these things, we have to submit to authorities of the state?
Well, like I'm saying, if this were to be something that is valid, and if, for example, this was coming from the Supreme Court, then essentially everyone working as an investigative journalist has to stop their work, because or it's either you stop working as an investigative journalist or you seek employment with IOCO or OSP or the police to become an agent to them. You investigate matters and then present your findings to them. The applicant talked about privacy, and if you read the ruling, there's quite some detailed analysis and cases that are cited, and if you look at perhaps the most fundamental piece of law around privacy, which is Article 18.2 of the 1992 Constitution, yes, it makes it clear that privacy is guaranteed, but it is not absolute. There are exceptions to it, and if I may read it, it says, no person shall be subjected to interference with the privacy of his home, property, correspondence, or communication, except. So when it even says that nobody shall be subject to all these, there is an exception, except in accordance with law, as may be in a free and democratic society for purposes of public safety or the economic well-being of the country. The economic well-being of the country. And Winston, the case in question relates to an investigation that the journalist was conducting about a particular company, and the owner of the company, who is applicant in this. Essentially, the journalist said, well, he's looking into issues around non-renewal of company documents and non-filing of annual returns, non-payment of taxes by the companies, conflict of interest issues with regards to procurement contracts with Goyle Ghana Limited, and then wrongful acquisition of government lands in private areas. Matters, according to the judgments, that were being investigated. And if you read the ruling, it says in there, because I didn't know, but it makes it clear that the applicant's husband at one point was the chief finance officer at Goyle and later became the acting MD of Goyle. And at some point too was the chairman of the board of the Ghana, I think, Student Loan Trust or something like that. And so clearly, if the journalist said there was something he was investigating around conflict of interest in the procurement of contracts from Goyle, there could have been some basis to it. And the judge in the analysis talks about, yes, privacy is guaranteed, but it is not. The public interest in is critical, and nobody can come under the guise of privacy to avoid the disclosure of matters that are of public interest. And yet concludes that if there was something that was of public interest, the journalist should have made a report to Ioko and the others rather than seeking to publish them. It's you can't just understand.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is a matter that should be allowed to just rest like that. Because as I'm saying, then it means we all have to stop the work that we are doing.
In effect, you're suggesting this is a matter that should go all the way to, even if the Supreme Court, to make sure that this doesn't stand.
Absolutely. And we as an organization will be fully committed to supporting any course of action towards testing the validity of this judgment, because it has very, very significant ramifications for the role of the media. And Article 1625 talks about the responsibility of the media or the journalist to hold duty bearers, public officials accountable for the interests of the country, to ensure accountability and transparency. And if this is a matter that is to, acquisition of state lands, I don't think that is a matter of, a private matter. If it is something in relation to the procurement of a contract from a state body like Goyle, I don't think that we can relate it to a matter of privacy. And indeed, if a company that ought to have been paying some taxes is not doing that, and it is to be revealed, I don't think this is a matter of privacy. The other thing that is raised is whether or not the journalist got these pieces of information through an appropriate written right to information request. Before the right to information law, we were doing investigative journalism.
Yeah.
And we depend on sources who think that things are going wrong and they will disclose that to you. As you rightly said from the beginning, if this were to be the rule, then when police investigated the SML thing, the people behind SML could have just gone to court and said, hey, our company is a private matter, who the owners are is a private matter, the names of the owners is a private matter, it wasn't procured through a written RTI request, and therefore our privacy is being breached. And then, because of that, the journalist cannot do the work, or if it can at all, you cannot publish it, and what you can do is to submit whatever you have found to the institutions. National Service, once we did it, the people at National Service could have gone to court and say, hey, the people are going to talk about matters relating to data, the NSS database, which contains the names of people, and it's a privacy matter. They are going to talk about how we do our work. It's a privacy matter, and therefore we want the court to restrain them. And then the court would have done that, or the law would have already prohibited it, and all that we can do is to submit our findings to the appropriate bodies. Far scandal. When we did it, we couldn't have published it. School placement for sale, we couldn't have published it. So that's what I'm saying. In this case, essentially, investigative journalists have to stop their work or become employees of OSP, Ioko, and all these bodies. I think this is, for me, a very, very bizarre ruling, and it is something that stifles journalism. This is worse than, the content authorization piece of legislation that the NMC wanted to introduce. The Supreme Court said, look, censorship. The journal published whatever, but he's being stopped. Don't publish it. if you think you have anything, submit it to these authorities. I don't think that this is tenable. And certainly we would support any effort towards testing this at the courts above the high courts.
Suleiman Abrahama, thank you very much, and we'll definitely follow up on this. This is something that affects all of us, so we'll be in this together. Thank you very, very much for joining us this morning.